Welcome to the Real Life Weight Loss Podcast, where we cut through the confusion and get down to the truth about what really works for real people when it comes to losing weight, having incredible health, and a body that you love. We believe that losing weight is really about gaining life, doing things you never thought you could, having renewed confidence, and enjoying your body more than ever. I'm your host, Corey Little. Now let's get to it. Hello, my friends. Welcome back. Today, I'm going to explain one weight loss tip that will help you kind of get over the hump. Like if there's an area in your weight loss journey where you're like, man, I'm just struggling. Like, oh, I can't get in my exercise each week. Or, oh, man, I'm really struggling to drink my water or whatever it is. I'm going to explain a different way that you can approach it and look at that in order to help you get over the hump and make even more progress. And along with this, kind of tied into all this, I'm going to also give you a pretty big update. So a few months ago, I explained how the podcast is growing, and that's amazing, and I'm so incredibly thankful. I'm thankful that it's growing, and I'm thankful for each and every one of you. But the more success that a podcast has, the more successful it becomes, the more it costs to run it, produce it, host it, and all of those other things that go along with it. So to offset the growing cost, I wanted your input. Like I said, a few months ago, I did an episode about this, and I basically asked a couple questions. I said, do we want to start having some ads on this podcast, or should I offer some sort of a cool, super economical way for all of you, like really hardcore, dedicated listeners to get a little more in-depth teaching and guidance? And see, here's the thing. I always wanted this podcast, and I strive to make this podcast like you and I sitting down in a coffee shop, for you to pick my brain about losing weight. I wanted real life weight loss to be like talking to a trusted friend who also just happens to be like a nutritionist and weight loss expert. I wanted this podcast to essentially be yours, made by me for other people out there like me, real life people who are dealing with all the stuff that comes with real life, who are experts in other areas of life, as I'm sure you are, but you just might need some help with food, weight loss, and some health-related goals. And that's why I try my best not to waste your time, and I get straight to the topic at hand in almost every episode. And that's why I do my best to serve up bite-sized episodes that are roughly 20 to 30 minutes long, and you don't have to listen for 3 hours to get the main point. That's why I promise to always tell you the truth and to pull back the curtain on the diet industry. And that's also why there hasn't been any ads on this podcast, because I refuse to endorse or put my name behind some product that I wouldn't use or don't want to use myself. Now, as the podcast has grown, I've been approached over and over and over again by various companies wanting to advertise their products on the show, wanting me to endorse and advertise their products. And every single time, I have politely declined, thank you, but no thanks, because I value your trust more than you can imagine. Like I said earlier, there's no freaking way I'm going to promote some product that I don't believe is great and believe will be helpful for you. But as the podcast grows, expenses grow, and ads would help offset that cost. And that's why a few months ago, I asked for your input. I asked those questions, like, do we start running ads, or would you like a Real Life Weight Loss Plus version, like a premium monthly subscription or membership, whatever, where you get some cool stuff and some extras every week? And all of you amazing people responded, and I very much appreciate it. Some of you expressed interest in the premium option, and that was great. But it was pretty overwhelming, honestly. It was pretty lopsided in the other direction. Most of you said something like, hey, honestly, Corey, there are so many monthly subscriptions, $5 for this, $10 for that. I don't want another one of those. Like, yeah, it would be great, and I would enjoy it in some ways, but I don't want another one of those. I would be interested, honestly, in knowing what products you take or recommend, and I really don't mind ads that much. So I hear you. Cool. Let's do it. So an update. The past few months, I've been communicating with various companies, sifting through things, discussing numbers and products and all that good stuff. And honestly, I just didn't feel really good about any of the things that I was looking at. Maybe it was a great high-quality product, but I didn't feel like it would be helpful for you, for my target audience, and for your needs. In other words, it wouldn't be helpful for real-life weight loss, for helping you lose weight in real life. Maybe it was a product that I like, but the company's customer service and communication turned out to just really be kind of crappy. So I decided to kind of shift gears. I shifted into brainstorming mode. And this is the central lesson for this podcast today, for this episode. The options that we see are almost never the only options, but we get stuck in them sometimes. Sometimes we get so zoned in on seeing a certain thing in a certain way that our brain kind of automatically eliminates any other possible solutions. We don't realize it, but we get tunnel vision. Sometimes tunnel vision can be a good thing, sure, but when it comes to finding a great solution, we often need the opposite of tunnel vision. We need a big, broad brainstorm session. So whatever it is that you're struggling with in your weight loss journey, it might be super helpful if you push back from the way that you've always tried to do it, or what you think you should do, or what you think is the right way or the best way. Push back from all that. Push away, and possibly even get a good friend involved and start asking some questions. If you're a note taker, grab your pen, write these down. Question number 1, what other ways could I accomplish this? What am I not thinking about that could help me do this? What would this look like? This thing that I'm struggling with, what would this look like if it were easy? How can I make this easier for me to accomplish consistently? And then once you've asked and answered those questions, maybe with help from someone else, someone who's outside your sphere and can think about it in a fresh way, then once you do that, once you answer the questions, this is vital. You must be willing to step out of your comfort zone and try something different, because your brain will automatically want to discredit most of the new ideas that you come up with. Why? Because it's not the way you've always thought or always done it. It's not what you're comfortable with. And your brain likes what is familiar and what is comfortable. A perfect example of this is my wife. So she always worked out super early, first thing in the morning. And I think part of the reason she did that is because it's what I did. And so we just would get up and go to the gym together, see each other for a little bit in the morning before we both moved on to our work day. And she would wake up for her. I think for anyone, this is pretty early, but I think she would get up at like 4:20, something like that, 4:22, 4:25. And she would get her workout in and then get cleaned up and get dressed and go off to her job. She's a teacher. She would go off to teach for the rest of the day. Now, she got to the point where she absolutely hated that, and she absolutely dreaded going to the gym. And this is not really helpful because, number one, my wife wants to stay fit. Number two, she normally enjoys working out. So I encouraged her, why don't you just try working out after school? Sleep in a little later and try. And as soon as I would say it, no, Corey, no, I don't want to do that. I can't imagine. At the end of my day, I'm so exhausted, I can't imagine working out. I said, sweetheart, maybe the reason you're so exhausted at the end of your day is because you're getting up at 4 a.m. to work out first thing in the morning. No, well, maybe you're right, but I just want to keep things the way they are. Finally, after months and months and years of her just kind of being miserable with morning workouts, she said, you know what? I think I may try that. I think I may try just one day this week working out in the afternoon. Boom. I said, you know what? I think it's a great idea. Even if you don't like it, at least you've tried it, and at least you'll know. So she just did one day each week of working out in the afternoon after school. And she started to like it. And now it's been years since she worked out first thing in the morning. She works out immediately after her work day. She goes in the gym, knocks it out. And sure, there are still some days when it's tough and she's a little tired. But usually if she has just a little caffeine, she'll have some Rise Smart Energy. If she has a little bit of that, a little bit before her workout, she feels good. It ramps up her energy. She gets a great workout. She comes home, and then she's done for the day. And it allows her to sleep in much later in the morning, which she really enjoys. So this is just one example of how we get stuck in our comfort zone. There are endless examples for me, for my wife, and I'm sure maybe for you as well. But as you see with my wife and I, it took someone else outside of that person's personal sphere to go, wait a minute, why don't you just try this? And so it really could be helpful for you to get someone else, maybe your spouse, maybe a really good friend, maybe a sibling, to go, look, this is something I'm struggling with. Here's the way I've always tried to do it. What am I missing? Is there some other way I can go about it? This is also one of the incredible benefits of coaching. A coach can look in from an outside perspective and go, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? Look, let's get some different ideas. This is maybe the way you've always done it, but it doesn't have to be the way that you always do it moving forward. The bottom line, my friends, is that there's always another way. The possibilities are nearly endless when it comes to overcoming our weight loss struggles. The problem is we get stuck in a rut and we don't see them. We get tunnel vision and we just try to force what we've always done. And then when we struggle, we're like, oh, crap, what is wrong with me? I just got to get motivated and try harder. Well, maybe, but no, not necessarily. Sure, you can do that and you can rely on trying harder and motivation. But why not try something different? Why not step outside the box and be willing to experiment? It might not work any better, but you never know. It might be a freaking game changer like it was for my wife when she moved her workouts from first thing in the morning into the afternoon. It might be the thing that makes tackling a certain goal so much freaking easier for you. So one of my favorite examples of this is from the Dead Poets Society, the movie. I've talked about this at least 2 or 3 times on the podcast before. If you've recently listened to one of those episodes, bear with me. It's just an amazing example. Here we go. Professor Keating, a character in Dead Poets Society, played by the super lovable and charismatic Robin Williams. He passionately encourages his students to find their own perspectives, to find their own voice, rather than simply accepting what they see and hear and think should be true, the way they should do it. And I'm encouraging you to do the same thing, to change your perspective rather than simply accepting what you think is the best or the only way. So in a really famous scene from Dead Poets Society, Professor Keating hops on top of a desk and he says, "Why do I stand here?" He's in the classroom with all of his students sitting at their desk, and he is standing on top of his desk. "Why do I stand here? To feel taller than you? I stand on my desk to remind myself that we must constantly force ourselves to look at things differently. The world looks different from up here. If you don't believe me, stand up here and try it. All of you, take turns." And immediately, all of the students, they start looking at each other like, "Are you serious? Is he kidding?" And then they start, one by one, getting on top of their desk. And he continues. He says, "Try never to think about anything the same way twice. If you're sure about something, force yourself to think about it another way, even if you know it's wrong or silly. When you read, don't consider only what the author thinks, but take the time to consider what you think. You must strive to find your own voice, and the longer you wait to begin, the less likely you are to find it at all." Thoreau said, "Most men lead lives of quiet desperation. I ask, why be resigned to that? Risk walking new ground. Now, a flame in your hearts could change the world, lads. Nurture it." Now, if I may tweak those lines a little bit for our purposes today, if you're struggling to be successful, it's time to think about your situation in a different way. If you're convinced something has to be a certain way, force yourself to think about it another way, even if you think it's wrong or silly. You must strive to find your own way, to find what fits you and your lifestyle and your goals. And the longer you wait to begin, the more likely you are to fall into a deep rut that will be tough to get out of. Why be resigned to doing something how everyone else says or thinks it must be done, how everyone else says or thinks you should do it? Risk walking new ground and finding great new solutions that fit you and your life. This sort of brave brainstorming could change how you think. It could change your body, and it could change your world. Don't be afraid of it. Nurture it. Ha! That was my best version of a Professor Keating. So that's a very long-winded way of saying this. If you're struggling to do something that you know will benefit you, stuff like get in your weekly exercise, drink more water, eat fewer sweets, eat more protein, whatever. If you consistently fall short and it just feels super hard, like there's a brick wall standing in your way, then maybe it's time to do some brave brainstorming and think about a whole bunch of other ways, even if they seem silly or wrong or like they won't work. Just think about a whole bunch of other ways that you could accomplish that goal. And that is exactly what I decided to do with this podcast. And here's what I came up with. To help offset the growing costs, we don't necessarily have to run ads or have a premium version. There are other options. And that's what we're rolling with, at least for now. And it could change later. And this requires me to step outside of my comfort zone because I don't like talking about this stuff. So bear with me. Here we go. If you're a consistent listener or maybe a real lifer, who has listened to every single episode of this podcast and you love it. And maybe you've even used what I teach to lose weight or to totally reprogram your brain and start to overcome the bully in your brain and break your addiction to the scales. If you're in any of these categories and you would like to support this podcast, there are 3 ways that you can do it. Number 1, it's kind of the obvious one, and it's the simplest version, is just to join the Inner Circle coaching group. There was an incredible post from a person recently inside my coaching group, and this is what they said. They said, I was watching Module 3 in the Live Life Lose Fat program. That's the program we use inside the coaching group. I was watching Module 3 in that program yesterday, and I have to say this, Corey Little is blowing my mind. I've watched lessons 3 and 4 probably 3 times now. I've never heard anyone describe so clearly something that I've felt for many years, but have never heard someone else even acknowledge, much less explain. I'm actually in another weight loss membership group where they focus a ton on mindset shift and thought work. But after listening to Corey's podcast for a few months, I decided I could probably benefit from the Inner Circle too. I need all the help I can get. Plus, and this is the part that really stuck out to me, plus, I figured even if I didn't like the Inner Circle, I probably owed Corey at least that much for how much I've benefited from how much he teaches for free in the podcast. But I have no regrets. I am so in the right place. Look, this person doesn't owe me anything, and none of you owe me anything. But here's what I want you to understand. Some of you might never join the Inner Circle, and that's perfectly okay. But I know that some of you are listening, and you've been listening for a long time, and you're on the fence, and you want to take that next step, but you keep putting it off. Maybe you're nervous or anxious about it. Maybe you're just afraid to fail again. I get it. Honestly, that sounds like the majority of people who join the coaching group. And that is exactly why it is such an amazing place. Finally, you're not alone. You're surrounded by other people who get it. And you have a step-by-step roadmap to lose weight and to change your brain. 99% of the time, if someone likes this podcast, they absolutely freaking love the coaching group. So if you want more info about that, you can just shoot an email to support@CoreyLittleCoaching.com, and we will give you all the info you need. We'll include that email address down in the show notes. And that's the first, the biggest, the simplest, and the most obvious way that you can support this podcast. And not only will you be supporting the podcast, you'll be getting something really amazing in return. You'll be a member of the Inner Circle coaching family, and you'll be able to use my Live Life Lose Fat program to help you move towards your goals. Now, the second way, if you'd like to support this podcast, is simply to purchase Rise Nutrition products. These are products that I believe in, that I trust, that I can vouch for, and that I and my clients actually take on a consistent basis. Why? Because I created them. And I am confident about the quality because I know the manufacturers. I know the people who are making them. Anytime you purchase a Rise Nutrition product, you are supporting this podcast. So if you use or you would like to try any of the following categories of products, it would be awesome if you considered the Rise version. Omega-3, multivitamin, protein powder, or an intelligently designed energy powder that like you mix into a drink. Those are the only categories of products that we offer through Rise. I discussed all of these products in depth, what they are, why I use them, and a little bit more of the information behind them in episodes number 206, 207, 208, 209. So those 4 episodes, I go into these products and explain them a bit more. I don't promote them or push them because I never want anyone to feel like, oh my gosh, Corey's just pushing his products all the time. Not at all. But please know that anytime you purchase a Rise Nutrition product, whether it's through the website or on Amazon, you're supporting this podcast. And it is very much appreciated. So if you're interested in giving Rise products a try, as I mentioned, you can find them on Amazon or at the website challenge2rise.com. I will include both of those down in the show notes as well, and you can check all of that out. And then the third and final way, if you're interested in supporting this podcast, is to drop a tip in the jar, like for your barista at the coffee shop or something like that. So here's the thing. To be 100% completely transparent, I almost didn't include this last option. It's something that my podcast hosting software recommended, and I was like, nah, I just don't know how I feel about asking for tips. But then I was like, when I receive really great service from someone or something, I'm happy to give a tip. So if you're a real lifer and you absolutely love this podcast and you'd like to support it, but you have no plans to join the Inner Circle or purchase Rise products, then here's a way that you can do that. And you will find down in the show notes or somewhere below this episode a link to either take you to that option, or I don't know, maybe it'll be a direct thing down there. I don't know how all the software works, but just scroll down and you'll find it. So that's the third and final option. Now, here's the thing. Above all, here's what I want you to know. I appreciate you. Look, I do not want any of you to feel obligated in any way. I created this podcast, and I create this podcast every single week as a labor of love. I love it. I absolutely love the thought of it brightening someone's day or helping someone in some way. And I'm so grateful for you and for every listener. I'm honored by the reviews you post and the messages you send me. I'm honored every time you share an episode with a friend or you tell someone about real life weight loss. And none of you owe me anything, not at all. This is not a guilt trip. I cannot stand that crap, and I would never do that to you. I just wanted to think outside the box when it comes to offsetting the cost of this show. And these three options are what I came up with. We might roll with this, or it might change sometime. Regardless, please know that I appreciate you. I'm honored that you spend your time with me each and every week. And if you choose in some way to support this podcast, I sincerely appreciate it. And if you choose not to, that's perfectly okay too. I love you all the same. Okay? Okay. Now, let's wrap it up like we always do. There is so much more to you than a number on the scale. So whatever you do, don't let that little machine that sits in your bathroom dominate your day or dictate your emotions or get all up in your head. No, 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 because you're so much more than that. And losing weight is incredible, and I love helping people do it, but losing weight is really all about gaining life and living the life that you've always wanted to live, and I absolutely know you can do it. I believe in you 100%. Even if you don't believe in yourself, that's okay. You keep listening, I'll keep working on you, and we will get you there. Okay, my friend? Take care. Thank you for your time. God bless. Bye-bye.